And a very pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you tonight after the Dukes fall in their first Sun Belt game of the season to ULM on the road, 21-19. And the game that, let's just be candid, was a little bit of a heartbreaker for all of us in the JMU Nation. But it's a short week for the Dukes, as they will have to turn the page to take on Coastal Carolina, a game that will be on national television on Thursday night, into what looks like will be a sold-out crowd at Bridgeforth Stadium. I think there's about 100 tickets left at last count remaining in Bridgeforth. So if you're somebody who has some tickets and you're not able to make the trip, as we mentioned on our last episode, this is the perfect opportunity to give your tickets to maybe a JMU alum or a grad who hasn't made it back to a game in the first time in a while. Get people in the seats, because this is a huge game with both teams coming into Thursday night's contest with a 4-1 record. So we're going to break down everything that went on in the ULM game. We're going to look forward again to a game against a team that needs no introduction, a team that everyone in the JMU Nation loves to hate in the Chanticleers. I want to get started by thanking our sponsors, as always, the Montpelier Collective. Still tickets left for the Coach for a Day campaign. You can find the link to sign up for that raffle at MontpelierCollective.com, and of course on all of their social channels. I want to thank our friends with Skyline Financial Partners, Where's Woody, Talent Corps, Your Purple Nation, and Shoker Enterprises. And that we're going to get right to tonight's show, because we've got a ton to talk about. Bringing on Steve Brown. Steve, you were in Monroe, Louisiana yesterday. You made the trip down. Looked like you had a great day before the game started. Just give folks a little bit of insight into your journey down to Monroe.
It was a good flight into Jackson. Decent drive over. Went to the Duck Commander headquarters and picked up a duck call for my grandson and some stickers, and then hung out with in a sports bar for the afternoon watching games. I can tell you, Monroe, those people are nice people, but if you remember in the CAA, Monroe is worse than a combination of New Hampshire and Maine together. In terms of just facilities, the facility was just not good in terms of just that. Now, there was no crowd. So when Coach Chesney's talking about noise, he's talking about them playing sound on the video board up until we snapped the ball. It wasn't crowd noise. There was no crowd noise issue. But the people were pleasant. The weather was perfect. Other than that, the game was problematic on a number of different levels. But I did enjoy the people. I thought the people were extremely nice.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to, before we get started, we did want to mention one thing about our sponsor. The new Purple Nation store has officially opened in Virginia Beach. It is at 1624 Laskin Road in Hilltop North Shopping Center, next to Fresh Market booth E22. So if you're somebody in the coastal area who is looking for JMU gear, wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Your Purple Nation, Carol Bonassi. Now 3 stores in Virginia, in Richmond, Northern Virginia, and now in Virginia Beach area. You can find out all the information about that store at yourpurplenation.com. Steve, before we bring on Mickey, any just kind of high-level thoughts from your perspective about what you saw, having the bird's eye view there, being on the sidelines for the majority of the game? Obviously, the TV copy is going to give you a different view. Plus, you got the analysts and the announcers who showcase what they're seeing, and that obviously colors a little bit of your thinking in the game. Just kind of how you saw the game unfold from your vantage point on the sideline.
Our guys were ready to play, so anybody that says they weren't ready to play is silly. That wasn't the issue. The ULM guys were really ready to play too. And so from that standpoint, I think the fact that there was no energy in that stadium, I think hurt us. It's better if you can get more people to show up and boo you. At least you've got something. And when our guys were running out, the student section was sitting behind them. It was a pitiful student section. They were basically, our guys were motioning to them to boo them, trying to get them to do something. It's like a wrestling match. You want somebody to boo you, or you want somebody to cheer you, and you couldn't get any energy out of it. So I think that was part of the problem, and it's hard to create your own energy on the sideline. It's much easier at home when you're jumping up and down and waving your towels when you've got 25,000 people doing it with you. It's extremely difficult when you've got 150 JMU supporters and maybe 3,000, 4,000 people at ULM. None of them really caring. Big chunk of them left at halftime, and they were up. It was like they lost a quarter of their crowd at halftime, and they were up 14-13. So I think the juice had a lot to do with it. I think it's difficult to get up for that type of thing, and I thought the ULM guys played played their hearts out, and that is a decent team, a very good team.
They're 4-1 now.
They're well
They're
coached.
only lost to Texas.
Yeah, very well
So,
coached.
well, with that, we're going to bring on Coach Mickey Matthews, because I don't know if there's anybody I'd rather talk to tonight who's got the perspective on what it's like to go through a game like yesterday, but also to have to turn your attention so quickly to another opponent. So, Mickey, thanks for coming on again. Last week, you said a couple of things that turned out to be more prophetic than maybe you realized, but the one that stood out to me, and it kind of sums up what I've seen, at least in the reaction to yesterday's loss, is you said that there's all those people that compare to the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders and Alabama. You're not going to be able to find them if you lose this game to Louisiana. That seems to be the case, as I'm sure you're no stranger to being aware of. When a JMU loses a football game, the reaction is intense and it is swift. I'm curious, just from your perspective, what is it like? Less than 24 hours after a loss of that magnitude, when everybody in America who's wearing purple thinks they're a football coach, who has awareness of what they would have called on this play or would have called on that play, and all of their attention is focused on you and your players. I'm just curious, take us inside what that feeling is like, and more importantly, how you keep your players focused on turning the page to what's another big game in just a few days.
Well, I think it goes with the territory. The first thing I always is what John Kennedy said after the Bay of Pigs. He said, victory has 1,000 fathers and defeat is an orphan. And when you get beaten a game like that, and you're fortunate, James Madison. Now, I'll tell you another good saying that I've always, when Darrell Royal was the head coach at the University of Texas, they asked him one time, what's the best thing coach at the University of Texas? He said, there's about 5 million people in the state of Texas that love the Longhorns and think they're football experts. He said, what's the worst thing? He said, there's 5 million people that live in the state of Texas. And that's the way as a JMU, you've got a huge following and everybody thinks they're an expert. And it's a double-edged sword. So therefore, when you have a Saturday night that didn't go exactly like you wanted, certainly, you get in that chair that Bob has right now. It's not good. But I thought this in the ball game, what Steve's talking about. I knew it was like, when we were at JMU, we used to struggle. We'd go to Villanova and play in front of 1,000 people. We'd go to Maine and play in front of 500 Eskimos, and it's just a part of it when you leave Harrisonburg. And the other part of the deal is, Steve, what you didn't bring up, and it's true, is when those people come to Harrisonburg, they got a big crowd. You're going to get their best shot. I mean, the other team's really excited to be there. The Ball State guy was talking about it last week, and Coastal draws okay down here. They don't draw great in Myrtle Beach, but their kids will be jacked up. So it's a double-edged sword. When you're playing and coaching in a place like JMU, where there's so many people excited for you, and but I thought this, as I watched the game, I thought we were ready to play. I thought Bob and the guys did a good job. The things you always have to watch for when teams are not ready to play is there's poor tackling, bad kicking game, just making silly. And one of you guys asked, "Well, I'll go forward on camera about the pre-snap. Pre-snap penalties will murder you." I think I said it last week. Pre-snap penalties is kind of like cancer. It's a silent killer. It kills drives for you, and it keeps drives going for the other team when you're jumping off sides, either side or whatever it is. Just motion penalties. Those things, you're going to get some holding calls. Those things happen, but when you get those pre-snap penalties before the ball's ever snapped, it's a killer. I mean, it really hurts you, and I'm sure Bob and the guys will address that, and they'll do a better job this week. But I thought we were ready to play. I didn't see anybody laying around. I didn't. We started off like a house of fire early. I thought we were going to blow them out early. You just sitting here in Myrtle Beach watching it on television. I thought we were very close there. I'm sure their coach felt the same way. We were so close when it got 10-0. and we were driving again. That's when we went for it on fourth down. Is that correct? That early in the second, or somewhere in there, we were had 10-0, and we went for it on 4th and 4 from their 20-25. I thought if we scored then we had a chance to knock them out, but it didn't happen. And I thought we were ready to play. I don't think there's any doubt the staff did a good job. I don't think that's a world beater football team we played last night, but I certainly think they're good. You look at the stats, it's hard to believe they beat us. I mean, dadgummit. We snapped it 81 times and they snapped it 60.
Yeah. But they had a good game plan with that kid. The kid they played at quarterback, they decided to throw the ball more than they were going to run it. And I guess what I was going to ask you is,
they were 50-50. They had 248 yards of offense, and 45 of it I think came on one play. So you look, the other 59 plays, they made 200 yards. So we played very good on defense in the game. Excellent defense. These kind of games wear you out, and I believe I've been there. I've looked at them. They wear you out as a coach.
So how do you turn the corner? I mean, you've got a short week. We've never played on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And you're traveling back. They got in at whatever time they did. I'll say 3:30, 4 o'clock this morning, if it was in that time frame.
Sure.
What do you do now to get? These are young. I mean, I'm tired and I didn't play. And how do you get the players and the coaches rallied back to flush this game out of your system and say, hey, we've got a really big game Thursday night. We got to focus on Coastal. Don't be reading social media. Don't be listening to these, jackasses saying that the program's going to hell in a handbasket. Nobody knows what they're doing.
No, we're good.
mean, yeah, but how do you handle that?
I never listen to the outside noise, and I think the players, the more that I tell those guys, I don't listen. The only thing you need to listen to is me and your position coach. Period. End of discussion. Don't listen to your mother. Don't listen to your girlfriend, your roommate. There's no one who knows as much about the James Madison football program as we do. And there's no one hurting as bad as the guys in Bob are today. It's very difficult. I've always said that's why a lot of times when guys get out of coaching and college football coaching, they become great salesmen because they learn to, they got to move on to the next real quick. They don't, rejection doesn't bother them. And you've got to learn to do that as a coach. You've got to learn to do it as a player. You look at they finished the game tonight. They watched the tape. They're still hurting, but you must regroup as a staff, and you got to regroup as a football team. But because Coastal's coming in here with a lot of momentum. Yeah. They had a big win against Old Dominion home. They've got a lot of stuff going for them, very positive. So, you can't feel sorry for yourself. And that's a great thing about college athletics. You can't feel sorry for yourself or you get humbled. You will absolutely get embarrassed.
So Mickey, I want to ask you, you said you thought this podcast is kind of familiar to you because this would be the type of time each week that you'd be talking with your coaches. Take us inside the coach's room after a game like this, where first of all, you'd had back-to-back weeks where your offense is firing on all cylinders, and then have a game like yesterday where it was more of a struggle, and especially when you're navigating so many new roster players, a younger quarterback who's still going through the maturation process of learning his role with new receivers. What are those meetings like, especially after a game that, let's be honest, was probably contentious on the sidelines between the coaches trying to navigate this as well, and everyone's got strong opinions. What are those conversations like, and what do you imagine it's probably like inside the APC tonight?
Good question. I think what I used to get down, I was a big numbers guy specifically. And one thing I could be a little dominant, but whatever we talked about on Thursday, we were going to do that on Saturday. And the only person that would change during the game was going to be me in terms of how many times we were going to throw and run and how many times we were going to blitz and, different parts of the field. That was all. I was probably a little too meticulous from time to time. But you've got to look at the numbers, with your coordinators. And sometimes I would talk to the entire staff, but, the offensive guys didn't want me to talk to the defensive guys in front of, because you don't have enough time, and they don't really, the offensive guys are not concerned with the defensive problem and vice versa. So when I would talk to our defensive staff, I would talk about, they'd have the numbers for me about how many times we blitzed on first down and per call, what was good, what was bad, where their big plays come, what coverage were we in, was it a personnel thing, was it a scheme thing? We would talk about all those kind of things. What we play in the red zone, just all the different things defensively you can think about. Then offensively, I would always, what sometimes you talk about defensively is how many times did they run it, how many times they throw it, and if somebody had been really running the ball a lot and also they threw it a bunch against, so why did they do that? I'd always ask our staff, why did they change? Is there something on film that we're showing? You go through all those things. I mean, you break it down, unbelievable how many times you can do it. And then offensively, you would talk about how many times we throw the ball, how many times we run it, and where did we do it? How many times did we throw the ball on first down? Like, I was looking at it this afternoon for preparation of this show tonight that, we threw 47 passes yesterday, and we ran it 34 times out of 81 plays. And of those 47 passes, of those 34 runs, probably 3 to 5 of them were probably sacks or, the NFL does it differently, but in college that's counted as a run. So probably called 52 or 3 passes and called roughly 30 runs. And that's a bunch. So what I would do as a head coach, I would ask unless I'm sure they talked about it prior, but what was your thinking during the game? Did you think we could throw it that much to be successful? Were we successful, in this specific game? Things like that is what you go over today, because, because you want to totally end the game. When I was really huge, when we left the building on Sunday night, the game was over as a coaching staff and as the players. When we came to lift weights Monday morning, we had already moved on, and I was really, that's why I was raised when I was a young assistant coach, that you got to end the game on Sunday. And that's easy to say, but it's tough to do. But the kids are going to do the way the coaches say, the way the grown men in the room. So I was very emphatic that we would end the game on Sunday. And I've said this before many times. I had my Monday at lunchtime little press conference. Wasn't much to it, but sometimes I'd be asked questions Monday at lunchtime about the game on Saturday, and I'd already forgotten the game. I mean, I'd trained myself. Yep. I'd already moved on to the next week game, Sunday night and Monday morning film sessions. So you've got to do it. It's hard. I mean, it's a difficult thing because, we beat North Carolina because they turned the ball over. We did some good things in the game. There's no doubt we did. And I don't want to take, once again, when we beat Virginia Tech, whatever year it was, we won the game because Virginia Tech turned the ball over. It wasn't that they lost to us. And we did some good things in the game at Virginia Tech. But we did some good things against North Carolina. But North Carolina turned it over 6 times.
Well, ULM won. When ULM won the game on that
on a turnover.
That was the score.
That was a 14-point turnover right there. And we're a couple of my buddies were over watching the game with me last. I made James Madison fans out of my neighbors, and they used to be Clemson fans, and now they're watching our games. But anyway, I told them that. Of course, they like most fans. They yell, "Hey, how do you fumble the ball?" I said, "Look, he is a kid. Alonzo is a young man. He hasn't played much football. He's only played 5 games of big-time major college football, and he made a mistake. And we need to let Bob and his offensive staff make all the corrections, because I guarantee you they will show him how to hold on to the ball in a tight situation. When it's a call run for the quarterback, he's a running back. He's not a quarterback. And they will correct that. But he's a mistake. It was a huge mistake, and it cost us, but that's okay. He's doing some good things, and he's getting better. In my opinion, the kid's getting better every week. but that was beyond big.
And Steve, I don't want to jump on you, but the one thing he has shown is the ability, if you're looking for a positive, there's no one demonstrated more resilience than this kid early on in his young career to go through what he did last year, to come out and have the success he had in the early going in this season after having some rough moments in the year. He's definitely shown a propensity to be able to bounce back. And I was going to ask you, what kind of conversations are you having with a quarterback like Alonzo, or Coach Kennedy's likely having him, to help manage the highs and the lows of a season like this? Because he's experienced the noise now on both ends of the spectrum, from the fans criticizing him after the Gardner-Webb game to everyone in America saying he was going to be a Heisman candidate after the last two. And now it's a little bit of a come back down to earth moment. Can that be a positive?
Yeah. You have to explain to him, when they're young quarterbacks, they're going to wait till it's really critical to remind you they're young. I've always said that they wait till it's, critical, and they go the wrong. And sometimes you see an offensive tackle go the wrong way if he's young, but that doesn't cost you the game. You take when a quarterback, when they're young, they're going to remind you at the wrong time. The kid's doing a lot of good things. I think he's not a great passer, but he's improving all the time. He completed 42% last night, and that needs to go up. If you're going to throw the ball that much, and Bob and I do not talk football. I'd be glad to counsel him at any point, but he has never asked me, and I've never volunteered anything. But if they're going to throw the kid that much, they need to. If we're going to throw the ball 47 times, 50 times in a game, we need to complete more than 42%. But I think the kid's getting better. I think they're doing a good job with him. I don't think there's any doubt. And what y'all said, there were some drop passes.
Yeah, we've had 13 drop passes now through the first 5 games. We noticed the stat is only 16 all of last season. So
sure.
he definitely needs to have some players make some.
Yeah, the good receivers at Indiana, there's no doubt about that. But that's all part of it. We won't talk about that. But
yep.
Every time I look at Indiana, that Surratt kid's leading receiver.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because last year there were some catches that Surratt made that were all world. Sure. That the average person's not going to make, and the same for his tight ends, and you have Phoenix Sproles and others who made Jordan McLeod look really good when they go up and make that passes, and if they drop those passes, a lot of those games go very different outcomes potentially.
And I don't know. Sometimes once again, when you tell me how many drop passes we've had this year, who's had the most drops? How old are they? Sometimes if it's.
As Bob has said, a lot of these guys have not played.
Yeah, they haven't played
football. Yep.
I learned this when I was at the University of Houston with Coach Yeoman. He was a wonderful man. He's a great head football coach, Bill Yeoman. One time he made a comment. I was trying to play an older player in the secondary, and Coach Yeoman didn't want me to play him. And he said, "Big fella." He's a really funny guy. He's a West Point guy. He said, "Big fella." He said, "You never want to have a kamikaze pilot on his 14th mission." I really laughed hard at that. It made a lot of sense to us. A lot of times you're having an older player dropping the ball, you probably ought to find somebody else to play. But if they're young, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
And it's a really good thing when a young man, if these guys are young, they're gonna get it. Because they know that how bad it looks when they drop a pass. It's drive killers, and they need to work harder in practice. And the coaches will correct all of that. And I really believe that. I've said this many times. I don't have to go watch them practice this week, because I guarantee Bob will have them. We'll be preparing hard for Coach tomorrow.
What did you see in the line play last night, Coach, in terms of the offensive line first, and then we'll talk about the defensive line? What did you see?
I thought we were fine. I didn't notice any bad things. As I said earlier, I was surprised we were throwing the ball so much. And that might have been by game plan, that they didn't share that. They thought they could throw the ball against Monroe. So that was certainly something they might have planned on. So I thought our protection was pretty good. We turned some guys loose a couple of times. And once again, you got to have confidence in your coaching staff. And I certainly do, being a JMU Nation guy. The offensive staff's going to really grade hard on who's getting beat. And who's getting beat will play a lot more. You'll play these other guys and the guys that are playing good. But I was we had we just, that turnover makes there, it's a loss is so hard, because you really did some. I used to tell people all the time I wasn't near as good a coach as when we won the national championships they thought I was, and I wasn't near as bad 3 years later when we didn't win the first playoff game. It's a small things that you got to do, and you got to improve those things. And once again, we've only been together. Well, we got 60 players. Y'all told me new players.
Yeah. Yep.
And believe me, guy, I'll tell you right now, our coaching staff is learning a lot about these guys right now on who's getting better. You'll see some guys not getting as much playing time. You'll see some guys getting more playing time. Because once again, I know Bob's staff, they're challenging their guys. They're grading them, showing them that, look, if you don't pick it up, you're going to lose some time. And they're going to tell another kid, look, kid, you're getting better and you're going to start playing more. Because when you got that many new players, it's going to go back and forth. The defensive line, I thought it was fine. We played great defense in the game, guys. We gave up. They had 60 plays, and they had 248 total yards, and I think 40 it was on one play, that touchdown run.
Yep.
So,
we gave up 2 offensive touchdowns. So we gave up 2 offensive touchdowns.
We played good defense. We played good enough defense to win a game. I'm sure Bob is certainly is grading it really hard. How much. Anytime believe me, when you're the head coach, guys, when you ask about your defensive line, the first thing I say, you say the same thing all the time. I wish we had better pass rush. You always want a better pass rush. But I thought we played the run good. I thought we brought pressure. We had some good run blitzes that really helped out. They didn't block us, really. We missed a tackle on that touchdown. Our safety missed him.
Yeah. Fell down.
He fell, that's going to happen in the open field. There's I've coached some, Tony Lazat, he missed some open field tackles himself. He's the best one I ever coached in 40 years. But you're going to miss some guys. But we played great defense. I wouldn't and I thought we played pretty good on offense. It wasn't like it, we went out there and, as I said, we need to play better in the red zone, which you always do when you got close. And that turnover was so huge. It was monumental. That was a 14-point turnover. Huge.
Can you talk a little, Coach, about kind of how thin the margin is between these teams? Because I think a lot of people expect us, like we were in the FCS days, just to roll in and win by 24 points every game because we have so much more talent. And at the FBS ranks, the talent piece of this is pretty thin in terms of the margin, and it comes down to explosive plays and honestly executing and leveraging the guy that you're against. And if you can do that 1 or 2 more times than the other team, you're going to win. And I don't think a lot of our folks really know that. I think they expected we're a 16-point favorite. We're going to walk in there and beat these guys by 60, and that just doesn't usually happen, right?
I'll quote Neil Brown, the head coach at WVU. And Neil was an OCAA guy. He was at UMass and just really a brilliant young coach. It doesn't surprise me. He's a head coach at West Virginia now. When he was a head coach at Troy 3 or 4 years ago, I'm not sure when he took to West Virginia. He's been gone about 4 years. But I played golf. I'm always playing golf, Steve. I played golf with him at a tournament in Alabama. And I asked him, because at that time I believe I was still coaching at Coastal, and we were going into the Sun Belt. I said, tell me about the Sun Belt, Neil. And he said, Mickey, everybody's about the same. He said, every team. He said, every year I look at it and said, we'll win 9 or 10 games. And I think, boy, we really got good players. And he said, it dawns on me that we nearly lost 3 or 4 games. We won 9. And the next year I said, we'll win 5 or 6. And we got the same players we had when we won 9. I think everyone in the Sun Belt's about the same. I think everybody, the transfer portal is really hurting. It's hurt us dramatically. It hurt Appalachian. It's going to hurt because all the kids that are making good plays, they're going to leave. And I hate that. I do not like the system. But when you ask me right now about the Sun Belt, we're not going to be a lot better than all these teams. And they're not going to be a lot better than us. Coaching is at a premium. Turnovers becomes a premium. Turnovers, having a good kicking game, not allowing long punt returns. that's what's things like that. Not getting pre-snap penalties. That's where coaching comes in. But there's not going to be a lot of difference, because I thought Monroe had some good players. Their defensive line last night, they had 3 or 4 good athletes. I was impressed.
Yeah, I mean, that Coastal game is going to be a dogfight on Thursday night. That's a very good team, well-coached team, and a good team coming in here. And that is not going to be a blowout on either side of the ball. That's going to come down to probably the last 2 possessions in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I looked at their stuff. Coastal they're 98th in the nation total defense this week, which is not good. Now, they played some good teams. They played UVA. They played Old Dominion's going to move the ball, and there's another one in there that really moves it. But their total defense is 98, and they're 116th in rush defense.
Yeah, they're
which
terrible.
is that means they're struggling to stop the run.
Yep.
And but then their offense, they're pretty good. They're 39th in the nation. This time of year, these national rankings matter. You can't hide. Maybe sometimes the first couple of weeks is who you played, who you have. But I used to say this. I would always study the numbers. About mid-season, numbers didn't lie. Where are you ranked? In terms of I think I tell you the best thing we've got going on now. We're number 1 in the nation in turnover ratio.
Yep.
Which is we need to keep that going. And it's ironically, our turnover really hurt us yesterday, but we were number 1 in the nation in turnover margin. We need to keep doing that. We're doing a lot of good things. No one needs to panic. You're not going to win all the games. It's hard on the road, and we got that was last night. You know what it reminded me of, guys? It reminded me of our Montana game in 2008. Of course, that game was played in Harrisonburg, but where we could have played Montana 20 times, and we'd have beat them 19 out of 20. But that was the 20th time that night in Harrisonburg. And last night, I think we played those guys 20 times. We'd beat them. I don't know if we'd beat them 19. Because I think they're pretty good. I think I read where Bob said that after the game, and I think they are pretty good. I think they're better than what Montana. But we would still beat them 6 or 7 out of 10, probably 7 out of 10. But last night that was that 30% where everything went their way. That turnover, and they did some good things. They got a couple of sacks on us that hurt us. But everyone in the Sun Belt's about the same. You're not going to have a lot of difference in
Well, that's what makes it fun. I mean, this was kind of my thought process going into tonight's episode is, on the average day, everyone's quick to praise the Sun Belt for how good of a conference it is, how competitive it is, how fun. That's a two-way street. It's fun and competitive, and it gives for exciting matchups because you could have these wild swings in terms of outcomes, and you're going to get games like this. This is I saw one of the things from an App State fan last night said kind of JMU now is fully baptized into the Sun Belt Conference because they saw what it's like to go play on the road at ULM. You're going to see these types of outcomes when you go out to these Western road trips from the East, and it's a challenge, especially knowing you have a quick turnaround against an Eastern rival in Coastal. I am curious, do you think the fact that you're playing on a Thursday night against a rival team, does it make it easier to turn the page?
I would really think I think when all the smoke clears, I always wanted to have, if something like this, we got beat some, as all the fans used to remind me, but we didn't get upset much. Usually we're supposed to win, we won. But I would say that anytime we played bad or got beat, I want us to be playing a big game the next week. I wanted, and I assure you, the kids are, they're going to believe what the coaches tell them, and I'm sure Bob and his staff said, look, guys, we got to move on. If we wanted something, we should have done it while we were Monroe. We've got to move on, and they will. They'll have a good practice part. And I'll tell you another good point, guys. There's 2 times your football team is going to improve between the first and second games. Most of I don't know how much we improved after the first game, but I've always thought we improved more between the first and second game. You improve the whole year. The second thing is, you're going to improve more after your first loss. The next week, you're always going to play better. And I always thought I know 1 year at Georgia, South Carolina beat us early in the season. They used to be the SEC opener, and I forget who we were playing the next week. But we went out on we didn't practice on Monday, Joe, but we went out on Tuesday. And I remember walked off the practice field. I even told my guys on defense, I said, guys, we should have played like this Saturday. We were in Columbia. We would have beat South Carolina because we had a great practice today. You know, everybody was flying around and very sharp with all their and I think we'll really play well. I would be stunned if we didn't play great against Coastal. I think we're going to play well. The guys are going to be ready. It'd be terrific.
That place is going to be rocking. We've got
wonderful, and the fans will be into it. You know, they think it's easy. You know, after that Boston, they think it's easy, and it's not easy. Believe me, it is not easy. And the fans need to be into it.
Well, and there's one thing I remember, not to bring up Kurt Signetti again, but there was something he said last year. There were a couple of reporters who kind of snapped at him when some of the games were a little closer than maybe people thought it should be. And he said, you know, a win for a coach, you win by one, that's good enough for a coach. It's fans that have the ability to kind of go back and forth about if it's good enough, because it's hard to win football games, and it's particularly hard to win football games on the road. And that's been something I've seen over many, many years of watching the sport, but it rings true in a conference like this, especially like, as you said, having to go into a sleepy environment like that and on a humid night. It's not an easy task. Not to say we shouldn't have won the game. As you said, 6, 7 out of times you're going to probably come away with a W, but it seems like that was a game where almost like the sand slipped through your fingers. The heart of that team tried to pull out of the hole. It seemed like it was the death by 1,000 cuts, especially when the penalties.
There's no doubt. It was a tough loss. There's no doubt. I thought all of us hurt last night, but I guarantee you've been in that locker room last night, because the kids, you know, they want to go to the playoff too. I mean, that was in the back of their mind. They wanted to do that. They want to be playing for it in November. That's, and to have a game like that happen just hits you right between the eyes. I mean, it's the hurt. You can't imagine how bad those kids hurt flying back last night. You know, and they feel like they let everybody.
How quickly on a sideline do you know you're in one of those games? Because you said, like you said, there was a good start. You're up 10-0. You're driving. Everything seems to be going your way, and then you have a play like that on the fumble, which kind of changes the entire mentality of the game.
Yep.
Does that ripple affect you? Can you physically feel it? Because I feel like as a fan you can, but I'm most curious is what you feel as a coach or a player.
Well, I think I don't know if you know exactly how good the other team is. So, you know, like you haven't played them before, and you're kind of feeling each other out like a heavyweight boxing match. You know, in the first round or two, you know, you're throwing a few jabs and they're throwing a few jabs. But there's no doubt that I think is that game. You know, I thought, you know, Bob was not allowed to think we're fixing to blow these guys out. I'm allowed to think that because I'm sitting there in my living room. You know,
yep. I'm
just a fan, and I'm sitting there going when we got it down there, and then we're fixing to make it 17-love here. You know, and they're, you know, let's be honest. You know, Monroe's offense is ranked. They're the worst offense in college football. They're ranked 130th in total offense. They're not very good on offense. So if you get up 17-0, it's going to be hard for them to come back because two reasons. One, they're not very good on offense, and two, I think we're pretty good on defense. The numbers we're putting up week after week right now are very good on defense. It also that goes from that. But you don't really know sometimes. You know, I don't know. You know, there's been every football game is different. You know, I did it for over 40 years, and I never my experience. You know, I could feel different things, but you know, you never know because that play. You know, football is Russian roulette. The bullet you spin the chamber every play. You know, and you don't know when the bullet's in the chamber. You just don't know. That's the great thing about football. You never know when that play is going to come. That's why they have the big crowds and stadiums, and that bullet was different in the chamber last night. You know, it was terrible. It
seems like it was like that all across the country. 4 top 10 teams lose. You have Alabama loses to Vanderbilt, obviously. Tennessee falls. A wild outcomes all around the sport.
Michigan,
what you said, is very much tied to all the player movement too. There's just so many new faces in so many different locations.
I mean, last night at the end of the first quarter, what I said to somebody standing near me, I said, we need 14 more points. We get to 24, this game's over.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't think you're far off at all. Yeah, it was that they're not very good on offense, and I think we're good on defense. It's gonna be hard for them to score. 14 was probably, if we played them 50 times, that maybe it's most they're going to score against us over 4 quarters. You know, there's no doubt.
Mickey, are you going to be able to make the trip up on Thursday? Have you convinced Kay
yet?
I
don't know. I got to talk with Miss Matthews here. I don't know. Like I said,
You
let
let
me
me
and the
know.
dog come up.
I'm
I'd
holding.
love to be there. Now I've said for a couple of days here, I think I'm not going to go, but us talking about it here, I can't. I'm just. I throw
I'm
too many
holding.
things I throw too many things at the TV when I'm sitting in my house.
I'm holding
It's
2
not my
tickets for
visor.
you.
It's something else a little stronger.
If you want to come, I got 2 tickets for you. They're there no matter what. And if you don't come, it's those 2 tickets will, I'll find somebody at the last second, or we won't use them. But you've got
Well,
2 tickets.
you're very nice to offer. Let me see what you got. I don't know.
All right.
It's good. Y'all
Well,
are
Mick,
great.
I say I'll ask and every conversation with you. Other than Thursday, how many times you playing golf this week?
I'm playing in the morning. I'm playing.
Which tees are you going from in the morning?
Harrisburg, I'm not playing Wednesday. So I'm playing definitely Monday and Tuesday. But I'll say this now. I made this one of my neighbors. I made his October house payment. How much he beat me this week? So I need to come out of my doldrums here.
Was that from the white tees or the green tees?
They never let me play from the Prevagen tees. They always put me from the white. They don't let me. They're younger than me. Yeah, they say, back here, coach. Back here. Yeah.
You can still hit the ball a mile, so don't be telling people.
I can't.
You get on those green tees, you're going to drive the green, and they know that.
No, I can't. I need to be on the green tees. Green tees, with whatever. No, it's good. I play with a great bunch of guys down here. But they all, I tell you what happened. They were laughing. Coach Chesney gave me a JMU football sideline shirt, purple shirt. So I wore it Friday when we played. Oh, yeah, I showed up, and they were all making fun of me. Had my JMU football shirt on. I'm ready to go, boys. So I may have to catch a plane over.
It's your fault. So it's your fault that we lost because you wore that shirt on Friday.
I won't wear it again. You're right, Steve. I won't wear it again.
At least this
I've
season.
learned my lesson.
You wait till next year. Well, Coach, enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for taking time on your Sunday. This is always the favorite part of my week, and I have a feeling we're going to see you in Harrisonburg on Thursday night. I think it's going to take a lot to keep you away.
Y'all are great.
I got a bottle of Champions Dry Bourbon that's sitting there with your name on it.
Over the edge. There you go. Good stuff, Coach. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks again.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Steve, just some kind of final thoughts. I know there's some things we talked about before we got on air that kind of caught our attention in the reaction and the aftermath of this game. Anything not mentioned in the discussion with Coach that you'd want to kind of get off your chest or kind of mention? I know one thing for me is kind of, I said to you early, the fan reaction to this loss feels different than I've experienced in my 22 years plus of watching it seems like there was a higher degree of vitriol among at least a small segment of the fan base.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I know you're going to amplify on that. I get aggravated with that, and that's why I kind of mentioned to him about the talent level and how close it is. And I would hope that our fan base learns to grow a little. We're going to lose games, folks. I don't know who you all are out there that think we're going to run the table. There's times on here that we'll, huff and puff and have fun with it. And I'll say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. At the end of the day, we're probably this year going to be 9-3 or 10-2. There's another loss out there potentially. Now, I hope, we all hope it never happens. But when you look at the schedule, at the end of we go to Georgia Southern. I mean, that's going to be a dogfight and a half, and I don't know that we're going to win that game. That's another really tough place to play. We rolled in there 2 years ago, all high on our high horse, and what happened? We got knocked in the dirt. It's going to happen, and so we've got to learn, like other fan bases have learned, that there are peaks and valleys to this whole thing. Right now, we have the whole Eastern Division still in front of us. We can win the East. We can host a Sun Belt championship. We can go to a great bowl game. And I'm not saying the playoffs are out of the way. Now, Boise looked great, but I don't know what Boise's going to do. They may fall.
I think that's a great point. Boise, we looked great the last 2 weeks before yesterday.
Yeah,
who's to say Boise's game isn't next week? It could happen. Yeah.
They got UNLV. They could split with UNLV. They could lose twice to UNLV. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we've got a lot of football to play, but we got a lot in front of us still to play for. So these people that are wringing their hands and talking about, I can't believe this, and I don't like when you call individual people out. Nobody's coming to your job and doing that to you. And at the end of the day, these are student athletes, and we're rooting for this team. We can be critical. There's nothing wrong with being critical. There's things last night that should have happened differently. We've been critical on this show. You're never going to hear us, though, call individuals out. You're never going to hear us be pejorative. It's not going to happen. So from that standpoint, it's a little aggravating. You'll hear, there'll be other people that'll continue to do it because they think it's, good clickbait. But at the end of the day, 99% of our fan base isn't that. So you got to get ready for Coastal. Come out hard next week, on Thursday for Coastal. We're going to have, pom-poms. You've already seen JMU Sports, put that out. So you're going to see a ton of pom-poms that you're going to be able to on national television. The brand is important, but it's an important game. It's going to be a blast. I mean, we should be looking for a dogfight. Would I love to roll Coastal? Yeah, I would. Are we going to? Probably not. I don't think we're going to roll them. I think it's going to be a fight, and I think it's going to be fight down to the finish. I think we're going to win the game. But at the end of the day, if you're looking for us to roll up 60, 45, 60 points on them and they score nothing, I don't see that happening. That's not this Coastal team. Remember, they got a bunch of new people too, and they're rolling out their new people, and they're trying all kinds of new stuff. So, I think it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a back and forth game. So come support these folks.
Yeah, you touched on a number of things I was going to say. I mean, there were some people in our comments and messages sent to us saying, "Hey, don't sugarcoat yesterday. Tell it to us straight. Say this, say that." Look, couple things. First of all, we have been as transparent, at least I feel like we have, since the first day that we started the show, that our goal here was very clear. We're not a program that's going to trash players. We're not a program that's or a show that's going to trash coaches. That's not the purpose of what we're doing here. Our purpose is to advance the brand of JMU athletics and to tell the stories of the players who make this sport so fun. But there were people saying, criticize the play calling, criticize this player. Look, I'm never going to tell a fan to not fire off a tweet saying you didn't like this or you thought this decision. That's part of being a fan. It's part of being sports. I think for me is the very direct shots using players' names and really kind of trashing all aspects of not only their gameplay, but even getting into the character piece on some of these. Like there was some dark stuff there last night. And that's my only request to the fan base is, hey, you can say it. It's freedom of speech. You have the right to do it. It's the right to the internet. But at the end of the day, I think you're going to want some of these things back because this team is 4-1. We are so fortunate if you compare ourselves to some of the other programs in the country right now who would kill to be where we are. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have a high standard. That doesn't mean we shouldn't shoot for perfection, but that's just it. We are in a conference that is competitive for a reason. So many people were saying the CAA was boring because we didn't like these blowout games. You're in a dogfight now in many of these games, and especially on the road, you're going to have nights where it's just not there for you. And that doesn't mean your coaches don't know how to coach. That doesn't mean your players suddenly don't know how to play. And it doesn't mean we should be calling so quickly for these guys to be fired or guys to be demoted. I saw people saying we should go to Dylan Morris again last night. So I ask for a little element of caution, if possible, for some people, and to try to maybe take a deep breath before you fire off that hyperbolic post, because it is noticed by the players. It is noticed in those circles, and it can have a real impact. And that's the type of thing that I get concerned about. Again, I know there's nothing that I can say, nothing you could say, Steve, that's going to prevent that type of stuff from happening. It's happening in every fan base in the country that had a big loss yesterday. I haven't checked, but I'm sure the Alabama message boards are pretty crazy. I'm sure there are some people saying Pete DeBoer can't coach. I'm sure the Tennessee message boards look crazy. I can't even imagine what the UNC message boards looked like after JMU put 70 on them. But I think we're in a really healthy place, and we still, as you said, have everything in front of us. I have not lost an ounce of faith in any aspect of what our coaching staff is doing. Yeah, did they make mistakes? As Mickey said, there's no one who feels those mistakes more than the offensive staff, who's probably kicking themselves for some of their play calls. I'm sure they had 5 or 6 other 2-point conversion plays they would have run in retrospect. There's just a lot out there that in the course of a game that we also don't see. There were moments that if a kid makes a catch yesterday on one of those balls that was kind of a 50-50 part, we're probably not having this conversation today. And that's where, to Mickey's point, the line between winning and losing is so challenging and really is so thin. And I'm just excited. I guess the best thing about it being a short week is we don't have to dwell on this game so much, because it is going to be here so quickly on Thursday night. And what I have a feeling is going to be a special atmosphere. The one thing I've noticed about those big night games in Harrisonburg, whether it's the Sam Houston State game, some of those playoff games, Bridgeforth in the evening, it's going to be a little cool. It looks like it possibly could go into the upper 30s on Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
That usually is an omen for good things when teams come south to have to play in Harrisonburg. And just seeing Bob's face in the post game and some of the players, there's going to be a fire in this team coming off that loss to keep
Oh,
this thing from going into 2 games in a row.
oh, they're pissed off. And I can tell you by being on the sideline the whole time last night, there were never any helmet throwing. There was never dissension. When Alonzo, fumbled that ball and they had the scoop and score, Chesney had his arms around him talking to him. There was no jumping his ass. There was no screaming at him. None of that happened on any of those plays. I didn't see any type of dissension. I saw guys that were, hyped up, wanted to play hard, wanted to do well, but didn't see anything that you would have seen helmets being thrown or any of that nonsense you see in other programs. They're together. This is a very together group of guys. They believe in Chesney. They believe in their assistants. They believe in each other. When he says, teammate, self, they live it. That's not just a mantra. And so, I believe they're disappointed, and they should be, but they're going to be fine. They know how to do it. They're going to flip it. They've already flipped it. They've already had practice today. And so, it's going to be a raucous atmosphere on Thursday night. I hope we roll the guys, but don't be surprised, fan base, if it's a fight, and that's okay.
That's good. It's entertaining. This is entertainment at the end. I mean, I take losses as hard as everybody. I was up last night until 2 a.m. People say you guys are homers. You gloss over everything. Trust me. Last night, I had the pleasure of watching with some other fellow Dukes. We took it hard. I took it hard in the text message threads. There were some texts I fired off to other people privately that I wouldn't say on the show or wouldn't post online. That's okay. It's cathartic. You got, and I'm sure the players and coaches in their own mind said some things, but at the end of the day, that doesn't change how healthy of a program we are, how successful the staff has been in the early going. Yeah, there's been some rocky moments, but when you lose 95% of your production, you're going to have some. Imagine if we were App State right now with the losses they've sustained, and everything else is going on. There is so much more out there in terms of programs who were kind of predicted to have tremendous success this season, who haven't had the 4-1 start, who haven't had the win over an FBS program like we did in terms of an ACC win. Which, by the way, that win over the ACC team in North Carolina now becomes huge for us because a lot of people had penciled that in as a loss. Now you get the loss against the Sun Belt team. Yes, that's a conference loss that hurts a little more, but that ACC win now still is huge in terms of keeping everything in front of us in terms of our goals. Again, I would also encourage people, don't define success for this season just as a playoff appearance. There's only going to be one group of 5 team who's going to make that playoff. You can still have an incredibly successful season, a Sun Belt championship level season, by not winning that college football playoff appearance from the G5. It's only going to happen to one program in the country. And that is one thing. If there's a negative about the college football projections being such a major part of the conversation, is I do worry at times that it's going to be that or bust, and people are going to consider every season where it doesn't end in that a failure. And that I'm just curious to watch that as a trend going forward.
But we didn't do it in FCS. I mean, we never said we had to win the championship every year. It was we need to make the playoff. Yep. And so the deal here is we want to win our division. We want to go to a good bowl game, but you want to win your division and host the division championship. That's the goal. And if you can get into the playoff, great. But for us to do that, we're going to have to start being able to play teams, which I know is a challenge and a half for Matt Transu. We're going to have to start playing the Boise's, the UNLVs of the world. They don't want to play us, and get those people on our out of conference schedule. App's out of conference schedule is great, and so is Georgia Southern's. We're going to have to start doing that, playing ECU if ECU will play us. Those types of games will start creeping into our schedule, and then we'll have more of our what I'll call the 0.10% of our fan base bitching and moaning that the schedule's too hard. And how in the world could you have now scheduled East Carolina? And how did you schedule Boise? And what are you doing scheduling those guys? Because now those will be losses. How come we don't have more cupcakes like this one and that one? I mean, you can't win. But at the end of the day, I want those people because I want us tested against those folks. And that's where it's going to go. For us to be able to get in the playoff or have a shot at the playoff, that's who we got to start playing. And that's what's going to happen when we get it on the schedule. So I'm comfortable.
Yeah, my final comment tonight is just that the people questioning the coaching staff. Look, it's fair game. They made some mistakes last night. There's no glossing over. For me, there was a lot of 4th down, go for it attempts. Maybe you dial that back a little bit. The pre-snap penalties, as we said earlier, and as Mickey said, that's something that has to be cleaned up. It's something that Bob has mentioned needs to be cleaned up. He said they need to go back to the drawing board on a couple of things. I think as there are some people hanging on his comments about the noise being a huge factor. Again, I think your point is solid as somebody who was there. Is it was a real challenge with the music playing up to the snap. Look, I'm going to take him at his word. Bob has demonstrated from day one he's a high integrity coach who doesn't seem to make excuses and doesn't seem to be the type of coach who looks for a narrative where one doesn't exist. I feel this staff has earned some trust and earned some patience from this fan base as they continue to try to get this thing right, especially when you look at his track record. The man wins championships. It's just that simple wherever he goes. Yes, it's his first year in the Sun Belt. It's his first year in the FBS. But let's give the guy and let's give this young staff of coordinators as well some grace as they try to navigate, again, what's a new challenge for them as well. And I hope fans take a deep breath before they start calling for their heads and start calling for some of the insanity I saw yesterday. I get it. It's in the aftermath of a loss, but we can be better.
I mean, the other thing that you didn't see anybody calling to question the calls that were made at the Carolina game.
Yep.
What happens if the swinging gate doesn't work?
Yeah, what all those fourth down calls didn't work.
Yeah,
yep.
Fourth down call didn't work. What happens if the onside kick doesn't work and Carolina comes back and storms back? Nobody said, "Hey, gee, how come you're doing that?" Everybody's like, "God, that's just brilliant."
Well, it's saying they're coached to win. They're aggressive. They're putting their players in the best position. Yeah, it's a cruel sport when it goes your way one week and doesn't go the next week.
Yeah. It's what he saw. We ran the same thing against Ball State and we got, went up to get 15 points. So it's what he sees during the game. And he saw stuff in the game last night that was open. You can't see it on television, but there was a reason to kick the squib that he was kicking. You could see it from where I was. I mean, it was there. If we would have spun the ball, I'm not blaming anybody, but if the ball had spun, they had a real shot at getting to the second level, recovering that ball, and potentially, it would have been perfectly fine. So I understood why he did it. People today are like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Well, you weren't there. If you could have seen where they were lined up, they were out of space. They were out of line. They were out of alignment, and they didn't have any more timeouts. They couldn't figure out what to do. And so the way he had it set up was right. Now, you can question whether or not he should have done it. I guess you can if you want to as a fan. But, I don't question it because he's the one seeing it. He's got the vision for it. I don't have that expertise. So, at the end of the day,
if they get that, Coach Kane is probably the special teams coach of the week again. It's
yeah. If somebody there's tons of stuff that you can look to last night to say, hey, if this would have happened, we'd have been fine. But that's what happens when you've got a loss, and you don't ever look at it when you've got a big win. You don't talk about the other stuff. But I'm fine with it. I know these guys are going to recharge, comfortable with what we're going to see on Thursday night, and can't wait to get in.
I still think the ceiling is so high. Especially if we can clean up these drops. If you can clean up the pre-snap penalties and continue to improve and take steps in the next direction, and Alonzo's growth continues to mature, we're going to get back to more of the closer to the 60-point outcomes than we are than what we saw yesterday from this team. I am as optimistic today as I was before yesterday's game, and nothing's changed. And as you said, I'm excited for Bridgeforth with 1,000 extra students.
Oh my God, I can't wait! I can't wait. I'm going to go crazy with my post. I'm going to start tomorrow.
And very excited about a well-prepared and well-tailgated Zach Price, who will be in the stands. Shout out anybody's listening. So Zach's going to bring his A game for night game at Bridgeforth. So
I'm going to have a little bit of swing oil. I'm going to be feeling quite good. I've got my Champions Drive already in a box.
There are a lot of people staying in hotels on Thursday night who do not have to worry about driving home. So I think it will be a boisterous crowd inside Bridgeforth Stadium. I did want to end with this before we end the show. Again, the people of North Carolina, the Asheville area, Boone, North Carolina, Southwest Virginia, still desperately need all of our help. Whether it's a gift to, as I've mentioned before, I work for the Red Cross, Team Rubicon, Samaritan's Perch, a local church in the area, or groups that are collecting items. The need is extensive, and there is another storm threatening the state of Florida that could impact the entire state, but particularly the Tampa Bay area later this week. We're at our best as a fan base when we come together to support those in need. I'll never tell you what charity to donate to, but find a charity that you believe in, that you trust, and let's make a difference in the lives of people who are going to be impacted by both the past storms they've experienced and the storms to come, because I can tell you this is my day-to-day life. They are going to need all of our support. So find a group near you. If you're somebody who's into volunteering, somebody who has a passion for service, many opportunities for you to get involved in enhancing the ability of these families families to recover and find those organizations over the days and weeks to come, because it's a perfect time to make an impact in the lives of people who need it. And with that, Steve, I'm excited to see you on Thursday night. We've got some cool stuff happening during the day on Thursday that we'll share later in the week as we turn our attention a little bit to the basketball side of things. If you're somebody out there, again, Coach for the Day tickets available from the Montpelier Collective, as well as gifts giving and ability for our programs to continue to have the resources. This is a critical time in the calendar to continue to support the Montpelier Collective. So do that at montpeliercollective.com. As always, thank you to all of our sponsors. And with that, Steve, we'll see you on Thursday inside Bridge 4 Stadium, 7 o'clock. It's a national televised game. Be loud, be proud, support the Dukes. And as always, go Dukes. We'll see you next week.
Go.